Hey, Rabanzo here. In this episode, I speak with Crystal and Pete Damore of Ordinary Elephant. I asked them if they would do another Kickstarter campaign, having just completed a successful one. We also talk about their new album, Honest, staying creative with online writing groups and a daily practice, booking tours on both coasts, life on the road, and advice for email newsletter content to your community. Let's do it. This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. I'm your host, Rabanzo. This podcast features conversations with me and indie music artists. Conversations intended to help other indie musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Crystal and Pete Damore are return visitors to the podcast. We first spoke in July of last year, 2018, in episode 59. We have in common a nomadic lifestyle, mine being digital, theirs being real, more real, in that their RV is their home. Particularly exciting for them is the recent release of their new album, Honest. You will hear a clip from that album, a track titled Jenny and James, in this episode. And you can find the entire album at all the usual places, but I recommend ordinaryelephant.com, where you can listen and buy. Guess what? I finally did it. I've created an Unstarving Musician Patreon page. It's a place for the Unstarving Musician community and its supporters and friends to get a little extra, a little behind the scenes of the podcast, like my icebreaker conversations with guests, the theme tunes behind the podcast, a little extra bonus content, a little extra insight and access to me as a musician, author, and creator, a little extra input into the direction of the podcast, the community, the second edition of the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, a little extra goodness I've not even dreamt up yet. Things you can have a voice in creating. So now for a mere $3 a month, you can become a patron. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com or the show notes for this episode and click the little button that says Become a Patron. You can also join the Unstarving Musician community at unstarvingmusician.com. That's free. You sign up right there on the homepage. In this case, you'll get tips and insights from me and all of my amazing musician friends via an occasional email from moi. Signing up for that community, again, totally free. Neither involves long-term commitments, just a whole lot of unstarving musician love. Pretty sure I scared Pete and Crystal when I told him about screwing up my interview with Tom Meany. The first one, I did two weekends in a row. A Friday before I did the successful one, which would have been yesterday in real time now. Today's Saturday, not for you if you're listening now. But, yep, screwed that one up. I didn't have internet. I have a fallback procedure, but tried to use that procedure. Tom and I spoke, got done, boom, no recording. Fail. Don't worry, y'all, I got this one. Here's my chat with Crystal and Pete Damore of Ordinary Elephant. Yes, are these the offices of Ordinary Elephant?
Yes, it is.
Crystal, how are you?
I'm good.
Tell me where you are again?
We're in Mesa, Arizona, near Phoenix.
The depths of hell, huh?
Yes.
What's the temperature?
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's been getting into like 110.
It's a cool day today at 102.
Yeah.
102.
It's crazy.
I've felt that before. It's been a while. I'm trying to remember when, but I know it's not normally pleasant.
Yeah, this is the first time for us, and we thought we were hardened to the heat. Growing up in Texas and Louisiana, and
we were wrong.
I'm thinking of a Far Side cartoon from long ago where, they say, yeah, but it's a dry heat, and it's basically a skeleton crawling across the, looks like he's still in crawl in the desert. But so for my listeners, we're already rolling, by the way. For my listeners, there's some sort of construction going on next door to me, which has resulted in some very loud noises in the last few minutes. So hopefully they're done. So forgive me, listener, and Pete and Crystal, if it comes up again. We may have to break if it does, but let's see how it goes. First of all, congrats on your Kickstarter. I know it's been over for a little while, but tell me if I have it right. You raised almost $28,000, and this was the first and only Kickstarter campaign you've done. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah. Thank you so much for the congrats. It was a lot of work, and we were overwhelmed by the support we received. It was pretty incredible to feel.
Have you even catered the thought yet of ever doing it again? I know I've heard so many stories of how hard it is.
Well, I mean,
the question is it going to be a viable option next time we need to do it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Just with how fast everything's changing, and are people getting tired of, I mean, it's necessary, with the way things are today. It's almost, that's kind of the only way you can afford a good quality album and promotion. But, when there's a group of music fans that have a lot of the same, a lot of the people that they're fans of are all starting to ask for help in that way, it can be a lot to ask of the music fan. So,
sure, yeah. I guess it's all about community building, ongoing, and I know people love you. Mm-hmm. I've been listening to the new album that was the child of the product of that campaign, the new album, Honest, with 11 tracks, again, correct me if I'm wrong, including a song called Scars We Keep, which we talked about the last time you two were on the podcast. And I don't know, well, I guess it was. I feel like I got and gave or shared a sneak preview, even though I'm sure the video was out there when I heard Scars We Keep a while back. But the final product and all of the other songs, well, most of which I've listened to, sound fantastic.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's probably one of the older ones, or one of the ones we wrote soonest after the previous album. We've been playing it out a lot, and it's nice to finally have it on an album to be able to share.
Yeah.
People.
Well, so what song or songs are you most excited about, having written a lot of new stuff since you did Scars We Keep?
Good question.
Yeah.
I always like playing Ginny and James. That was one of the latest or most recent songs we wrote, and it always feels like your newest song is your best song in a way. But I know that's also a mind trick that you play on yourself. But
I enjoy playing that one. It seems to go over well, and it's interesting because it's kind of it's a little bit like the exact opposite of Scars We Keep, almost. Like Scars We Keep is needing to get away from your past, not get away, but to learn from your past and change, and not be the way that people in your past were and how they taught you to be. Whereas Ginny and James is kind of the exact opposite. It's learning from who you come from in a positive way and needing to emulate them.
Very cool.
Kind of interesting.
And I just learned moments ago that Jenny and James is the track that we're going to share with listeners in this episode. So thank you so much for making it available for the episode. And obviously you can, well, maybe it's not obvious, but you can listen to hear the new album, Honest, newish, right? It's been out for a while, but the newish album, the latest album, Honest, wherever you find your favorite music. About a month?
Yeah, we just released it about a month ago.
Yeah. It's still new. It's still new. I had on my list to ask you if you were still living life on the road, and I don't know where my demarcation for the proverbial record button fell, but that came out almost immediately in our conversation. I was fascinated and interested in your life on the road. If you can, kind of remember back to our conversation that we had last time for the podcast, how's it been going? Has anything changed for better or worse?
It's good. We, I guess for the last several months, we've so we have a van and a travel trailer. It's kind of our living setup. And so the travel trailer is like our house, and we kind of have that somewhere as a home base, and then we can go out in the van. I mean, it's our everyday driver, but it's also set up so, we can sleep in it overnight, so we can go out on a short run with our dogs. And so the last several months, we've had our trailer in one spot and gone out in just the van or flown to do runs of shows or whatever. So that was a little different, I guess, having...
Only enabled by Crystal's parents being the kindest dog sitters and trailer sitters.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah, I was thinking, I wasn't sure I was going to ask, but I was thinking, well, I wonder how the logistics of that all works out, so you kind of leave the trailer and the van to travel like anyone would when they, maybe pick up a flight somewhere, or you're not driving to your destination. And I was kind of imagining how that worked out, but it sounds like the parents are often part of that.
Yes. But now we've moved the trailer, and we're starting to head west and back to our more traditional way of, moving the trailer around a little more often than that. It's good. We're about to do a project today, actually, building a little sitting bench / storage, and we'll see how that goes.
Got a bunch of projects that we're catching up on.
Yeah.
So does a sitting bench of this nature have to be, obviously it has to be portable, but does it have to be ultra portable to go in and out of the trailer?
Oh, it will be connected to the trailer. Like it will be, there's a spot that we will put it, that it will live there.
Oh, cool.
Because right now we pretty much just have two little folding chair things that we use to, work or eat or whatever. But that's really the only place we can sit down. And other than the bed, and we kind of wanted a more okay, if I want to just sit and relax for a little bit, which is kind of out of our vocabulary, it would be nice to have something, and you can always use more storage. So kind of devised a little, or just have a place to put things under, and anyway, so we devised a little plan. So we'll see how it actually works out. I
hope you'll share photos of it.
Sure, yeah. Well, we'll see what it looks like.
I'm guessing the answer is yes, but is there a reality show for people who are doing their vocation in constant travel? Surely there's several of them, but do you guys know of one or some that you?
There's one. So the blog that we found out about. Are being full time. Technomadia.com is the couple that really we learned so much in the beginning about this lifestyle. They just filmed the first season of this full-time RVing reality show. I think it's coming out in the fall.
Oh wow!
On Discovery Channel.
Maybe? I don't know.
Channel.
Yeah, it seems pretty big deal. They have 3 different couples that they're documenting, from what I understand.
Well, I think that you guys should definitely be on there. What is the website again for that?
Oh, it was Technomadia, like tech and then nomad, IA, technomadia.com.
I'll have to check that out and put it in the show notes for people that are like, maybe I should do that. So you mentioned going out. You mentioned going out west. So you're taking the wagon the wagon and the pooches, so to speak, out west for a bunch of shows, including a lot of house shows, which is exciting to me and hopefully to you. And you were so nice to, I recognize someone's name whose path you will cross at least once, Justin Farron, who you were so nice to recommend I reach out to for the podcast. Can you talk a little bit about that upcoming stint of shows?
Yeah, we feel super lucky to call Justin a friend, and also to be able to share a couple shows in his hometown of Sacramento next month. He is absolutely one of our favorite people and songwriters and performers, and do-it-yourself.
Yeah, he built his own house. And like
House
all this
builder.
Isn't that amazing?
Like
Renaissance.
yeah, he's fantastic. Like you just, I don't know. You hear a song of his, and it's just, I mean, there are just no words, like you just feel so blown away by everything he does, and seeing him perform live is just like he just embodies joy and passion while he's doing, like emotion, like just this,
just all the emotion.
You can just see that's what he's meant to be doing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. I hope that I have an opportunity to talk to him. I did check out one of his performance videos, and it did indeed look pretty intense from like just an enthusiasm or emotional standpoint, both musically and just him, looking at him. I was like, oh, he looks like a pretty good performer. And this was just like watching a small amount of it, and I previewed his music. And he's one of those, when I get a nice recommendation like the one that you gave me, he is one of those people I just listened for a few seconds and, looked at what he had going on online, and, in less than 30 to 60 seconds, I'm like, yep, I want to ask him if he'll be on the podcast. So, So, hopefully he does. Well, and then I don't recall how much we talked about this last time. And last time I was looking just now was around July of 2018. And speaking of, okay, you said next month. We were talking about in reference to those shows that I brought up that are coming up in the West, in California specifically. I hope that I think it will, but I hope that your episode will publish in such a way that listeners can actually hear it before it happens. And it looks like, I'll know this weekend, but it looks like it'll publish around the 21st or 28th of this month, June 2019. So maybe at least people can hear about it, and if they happen to be in the area, know about them. But please talk a little bit about where all you're going. And I think it would be it would be fun and interesting for listeners to know about how you put it together, because it looks like I don't recall how many shows, but several shows. And then you're going to the East Coast after that, right? After a while on the West Coast and doing kind of a similar thing. So yeah, it would be great to hear how you pull these kind of things together.
Yeah, that's pull them out of somewhere. The booking is interesting. I mean, we still do our own booking. We went to Australia recently, and we had a booking agent there. Like she had reached out to us, and she booked our stuff there, and she spoiled us for wanting to have a booking agent, because it's a full-time job in itself. So it's hard to, you never feel like you're doing enough. And I mean, while it looks like there's a bunch of stuff coming up, it doesn't feel like it to us. Like, it doesn't feel like there's enough that we've gotten, like we're not taking advantage of all the places we're going. But we also try to, like right now, we're in Arizona, and we weren't able to, we reached out, and we just weren't able to get anything lined up. And so we're just trying to take that opportunity to catch up on all the things that you can't do while you're touring, playing a whole lot. So we're doing projects and organizing and booking more shows and trying to write and that kind of stuff. But yeah, the West, we're heading out west to California and Pacific Northwest, and then the stuff on the East Coast. We played a place called the Deer Trees Theater in Harrison, Maine, which is a beautiful old opera house that we shared a show with a friend of ours named Heather Pearson, who's a wonderful musician in person. Her trio, we shared a show with her there, and it went really well. And the guy was like, "Okay, I want y'all to come back. And we plan one for next summer. Like, you just wanted to get it on the books." And so we just kind of projected ahead and like, okay, maybe this time of year will work. And so we kind of had that date on our calendar for a while now. And so we kind of planned around that. And so since we're out west, we're like, well, okay, let's try to put as many shows together as we can out east and just fly for a run of shows out there. So that's how we're going to get east. is flying and running a car and all that, which is a little more, I mean, I think a lot of musicians will do that, but for us, it's a little more difficult because we have dogs. And so that if you're not somewhere where you have family that can watch them, then you have to find, pay someone to watch them. And which we have 4. And so that ends up being end up being quite a bit.
You have 4 dogs on the road with you?
We do.
Did you pick up any since the last time I talked to you? I thought you had 2.
Oh no. We've had them the whole time. We had them before we started living on the road. So,
I feel for you. We have a dog we picked up off the streets here in Panama, and a cat we brought from California. And anytime we want to go somewhere, we have to think about what we're going to do with them. But, the California stuff, you just kind of worked the emails and the socials, and did any of those come about fortuitously? I know, I use the word loosely, right? Because I know you mentioned the one that you were asked back for, which kind of sprung you into a whole series of bookings, I'm sure. But did anything else come in that manner, or maybe through some of the folks you're appearing with?
The California, the house show in Berkeley. So we've never met them, but it sounds like a really nice couple who have been running house concerts for a long time. And they reached out to us, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, like for a little while ago. They had found our previous album, Before I Go, and loved it. And like, hey, if you're ever coming to California, we'd love to host you as part of our series. I mean, just reach out. We don't know how. She couldn't remember how she had found us. But anyway, so we've kind of been in touch on and off for the last couple of years. And once we realized we were coming to California this summer, we figured out a date that would work. So that was kind of neat.
That's cool. May I ask the name of the house show or the couple? I frequent the San Francisco Bay Area, and before I started this podcast, I really had only sort of heard of house shows, house concerts, and I've talked about them so much since I started the podcast, and so I haven't even really attended one. So maybe when I'm in the Bay Area. But anyway, are you able to share their names?
Yeah, their names are Audrey and Milton, and they don't really have a particular name for their series. They're like, this or this. It's not a particular name that they use all the time, but on our website that it has their email address for those that they use for the house concerts.
Cool.
That someone could reach out there and get on. Then they have a mailing list that they'll send out notifications that people could get on.
Yeah,
Concert 721.
Say that again.
They call it Concert 721, I think. I don't know if that's the area code there or what, but
yeah, maybe. Very nice.
It's so variable. It's so variable. Just just how formal house concerts can be, or how informal they can be. Some of them are almost like a venue that host a bunch of shows, and others that their first time, and you have to kind of walk them through them. And it sounds like this one somewhere in between.
They've been doing them for a while,
but they don't like really advertise it. It's their friends,
it
seems, and so they're all unique and almost always wonderful.
Yeah,
cool.
And then another one, the Santa Barbara one, we had met the person who hosts that at the Folk Alliance International Conference that we went to in February. That was in Montreal. He was there and saw one of our showcases and gave us his card and gave him a CD. And that's how that one happened.
Were either of those people? Were either of those latter two musicians, or did one? I heard you say the first conference, and then it sort of sounded like a second instance was from a conference as well. Did I hear that right?
Oh, no, the one in Santa Barbara, it's the same thing. Yeah, the Folk Alliance International Conference that was held in Montreal this past February.
Oh, okay.
That's where we met the host of that one. So it was, I don't know, traveling around and going to conferences and just in general meeting. You never know who you're going to meet,
Yeah. So I've asked this question on another podcast I do, but since we're talking about conferences, So I do this other podcast a little less frequently published for small business owners, sales pros, and solopreneurs. And I've been asking of late, what is your criteria for attending a conference? I'd love to know the same for you guys. It's pretty, it's a niche, just like any business owner. So what is your criteria?
Yeah, there aren't that many that we know of that we know are useful, but there's a couple. Folk Alliance, we used to go. I mean, we first went just to check it out, and they have a big one and like little regional ones that are hundreds of people. The big one is a few thousand, and I guess we just dipped our foot in 2013 with one of the regional ones, and it wasn't that big of a risk in terms of, and we were in a much different place too, but we were just kind of checking it out, and the relationships we started forming there are really the basis of our career at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear how important it's just such a meeting place for everyone involved, other musicians, and as well as venue owners and things like that. I guess as far like criteria, it's partly based on where it's located, that particular year. Like, okay, this year we're over here, so it makes sense to attend this regional one that happens this time of year in this area. Whereas if it's way across, if it doesn't make sense location-wise, or if we got a really good gig opportunity, it's weighing financial stuff and travel. Like, we know the benefits. We know that it's that we will benefit from going. It's if we can make travel and financial sense.
And then there's another conference that we went to for the first time last year called Americana Fest in Nashville, and we were selected as showcase artists, and so that made it a really easy decision to go because of the exposure you get from being selected.
Cool. When did that happen?
That was last September.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it covers your you don't have to pay to go to the conference, like that's included in being selected.
Yeah. And on the flip side, we were just looking into this other conference that doesn't seem, it's like the first year and it's put on by, I don't know, it didn't look as professional and established, and the money situation didn't look normal. So we decided not to apply for a showcase there, and probably not go, even though, well, it wouldn't be hard to get to.
Yeah, it'll be close to where we are at that time of year, but it just didn't seem like it right. Yeah, there's just like a gut thing where it's like, something's off about that, or just didn't feel like it's got the right people's like it doesn't have the artist in mind. Yeah, the intentions aren't right in place, or for where we think they should be.
Sure. I hear you. So something else something we talked about in our first round was songwriting workshops, which I guess kind of a decent segue from conferences, because you, at the time, and I suspect the level of interest is still the same, at the time you had a high level of interest based on, your past experiences, and we talked about how much you would do them if you were able, because of time and, money and all that. And it looks like you may, I don't know if you're going to one soon, but I happened to run across a post on maybe Crystal's, maybe on your Facebook profile about a workshop by Eliza Gilkison, which took me aback. No, is that the right word? Aback. Gave me pause because I, in the, let me think here, 80s, I had a short-term relationship with a young woman who turned me on to Eliza Gilkison, and I just kind of lost track of her. And I even went to go see her play once in Dallas, and they were a no-show. I'm like, wow, that's really weird. I've never had that happen before. And it was a small venue, but it was a ticketed show. And we heard later that they had they were traveling, I don't know, a van or several vans or whatever, but they didn't make it due to mechanical failures. And this was, this was pre-social media, interwebs. I don't even think anybody had a mobile phone at this point.
Open come hell. Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody knew. It was kind of like nobody knew what had happened. And that music from back then, I don't believe is even available anymore, but I saw her name. I'm like, oh, wow. So I was perusing some of her stuff today. So anyway, you have some interest or admiration for her workshops. Have you attended one? Are you going to attend one?
Yeah, we did last year. When did we talk with you last year? It was July. Yes, it was right before we were going.
Wow.
It was last August.
Mm-hmm.
We went to one with her and Mary Gaucher. And they're both fantastic songwriters and teachers and people. And there are several songs on the album that we started writing out there at that workshop, and a couple others that were started but were helped by going there. Just kind of based on ideas we got there and kind of applied certain things, and they ended up where they are. They would be different, had we not gone there. So we're just always so open to learning anything about other people's processes and how they approach things. And we don't have anything on the horizon at the moment for any workshop, retreats or workshops that we're going to coming up.
Well, I know you enjoy them, so I hope that one approaches your horizon rapidly. And I have a related question, but first I want to take a quick break. You are listening to my conversation with Crystal and Pete Damore of Ordinary Elephant, and this is a song from their new album, Honest. The track is titled Jenny and James.
Jenny was a good woman, James was a gentleman, pushed hard against the pushback. They loved like porcelain, it was a work of art. They got stronger under fire, got judged for being what it was. You was worth the fight. Don't forget what you come from. Don't forget what you come from. Jenny showed up at 16. James was born right down the street to a name that told him who he
My follow-up question on the songwriting workshops, and I ask because it's been a topic of conversation lately. I was speaking with Tom Meany, who's based in Buda or around the Austin area. Do you know Tom?
Yeah. I think that's how you found us.
Okay.
Actually, I think he recommended you. I think was what it was.
Isn't that funny? I had a feeling as I was asking. So I don't know if you've talked to Tom lately, but I've talked to him a couple times in the past week. We had an interview scheduled last Friday. We did it. My internet was down. I'm speaking to you using, as I do with almost all of my guests, using Skype, calling your phone. So internet's important for me, but it was down that day, and I have done it by other means when that happens, but not often. And so I got set up. It was all kind of last minute. I was in a frenzy. We did our call. We're done. And I had to tell him it didn't record. And so I know I took, it was, the funny thing is I took better notes than I normally do. So I sent him those notes in case we wanted to rehash some of that stuff or talk about it again. I knew I did. And I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and send it to him in case it helps him too. So we spoke again today, just earlier today. But when we had the first conversation, and by the way, I have on my calendar to document my fallback procedure when the internet is down, because I knew what I needed to do. There was just a small detail that I didn't have documented. Yeah. So Tom confessed to me that he's been going through a spell of basically writer's block. I'm trying to remember the exact words he uses, creative block. So I wanted to know, you two go to writers' workshops. You just did this album, but certainly at some point, I don't know, since the last time we spoke, but do you still go through periods of this where this is you feel like this becomes a problem, or how do you avoid it?
Or feel like you're just never ever going to write a good song again? Yeah,
sure, that's a good one. Yeah,
yeah. And I guess for us, there's two things. So I'm part of it's like a secret private Facebook group that we do a monthly prompt that will, like, you have to write a song by the end of the month and turn it in. Or, you get one that you can miss, and then otherwise you're kicked out of the group. So it's like you're held accountable to turn something in. It doesn't have to be fantastic, but you just have to turn something in. And then part of the year we're in this other online group that's this particular kind of songwriting process. So sometimes we're doing 2 a month. And then there's a writing exercise we do most mornings called object writing. And all of those things, I think even if it doesn't always feel like we're writing what we want, like, oh yeah, that was a great song, that was whatever, something that we're going to play out, it just keeps those mental muscles going. It just keeps you in the habit of it, so that when you do get that good idea that you feel like is worthy of sharing, you're practiced at getting it out of your brain. And I think that's helpful, or it makes it feel better than if you just weren't doing anything in the interim, between when you write a song that you then end up playing out for people.
Those two groups,
I think, yeah.
Those two groups that you do they're online. Is there a lot going on between submissions? So you're accountable, in the first instance, accountable for submitting a song a month, whatever degree of goodness or not so goodness you think it is. And is there much in between that, or is all of your time for the group really focused on writing, or are you also participating in feedback for others? And
yeah, it's meant for that, like for one of them more so than the other, where it's meant to, if you want it, which most people do, for other people to give their feedback and thoughts, and which is hard to do. Like, it takes time, to listen to everybody sing and give what you feel like is good quality feedback. So it can be hard to find the time to do that, but that is part of it. That is part of the group.
And I guess as someone who's giving feedback, that is a little bit on you in terms of how active you want to be in the community. It sounds like everyone would want to be, but I guess does it vary from month to month in terms of how much time you spend on that part of it?
For sure, yeah. I think because when I start doing something, I do it, like, give it all, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to then get wrapped up in it, and we'll spend a lot of time on it. And then so I think it comes in waves, because I'll do it, like, okay, I feel like I have time to do that, and I'll do it, and I spend a ton of time. And then the next month I'm like, okay, well, I don't have that kind of time, so I won't really do a whole lot in terms of that. it kind of comes and goes. It's hard finding that balance.
Yeah, I understand. I know it's a commitment, and then you're between the two of you. There are two groups, so I know that's a commitment. And thanks for bringing up object writing. I don't know if you remember, we talked about that in our last conversation, and I've talked about it a lot since, and have kind of participated in some a similar type of exercise or exercises as part of some writing workshops that I've done here locally. Tom and I, I'm not sure I mentioned that to Tom, although, I don't know that there's much I can mention to Tom that he's not heard before, but the one thing we did talk about brought up a specific point he found interesting, which I suppose got him, thinking, and perhaps will motivate him. And I was sharing a quote from Shannon Curtis, and it was basically, I won't know that I should read it again, but it's on if you want to see it, and readers maybe haven't heard me talk about it before, but you can look for Shannon Curtis, look for her episode at unstarvingmusician.com and see the FAQ or the back and forth that we had on some specific questions that I asked her, one of which was about routines and habits that have served her well in her music journey. And one of them was, and I didn't even prompt her about songwriting, but she said she makes appointments with herself. She's learned they're 3 hours. And I don't remember how often they are, but the part that that stood out to Tom was she says the first hour is usually like clearing distractions and things out of, keeping her from being productive. And then the next, the rest of the time she's actually productive. But between that and I think object writing and mentioning, asking people or suggesting they look into songwriting groups or create one. But some people aren't really, maybe they've either done songwriting groups or they've heard of them and just, haven't done them and don't think, or they've tried them and just it's not for them. But I think that in some cases I've gotten some people to reconsider.
Yeah, that appointment thing, that's a good idea. And it's so easy to get caught up in the doing the things that you can mark off a list. Like you have this giant list of tangible things that you can say, like, I did this and I did this and I did this, and some of it is important and some of it's more busy work and whatever, but it feels more productive. Whereas if you sit for 3 hours and write, which I love doing, I feel guilty, like,
oh, that's not good.
I could have been doing all these other things, it's that mentality of you have to be busy to be productive. And that's not true, but that's what society makes you feel. And the way my previous career was, it was very much like I was just go. And, there was just never, I don't know, like there wasn't, the creative life is a very different one. And I'm trying to learn how to do that properly, how to give myself the time I need to be creative and not squash it by, not giving myself enough time.
Yeah.
Or shame.
Or feel guilty for not, getting all these other things done you need to do. And yeah.
I think another quick thing that may be helpful to people is to go like take an instrument lesson and learn something totally uncomfortable, and I think as long as you keep learning, that's a good way to fight becoming stagnant.
I would agree. Yeah, that's kind of it's a troubling thought that, that guilt comes up, and I don't know that I've had this conversation before, and I'm sure that it's not unique to you, Crystal, that tends to fall on you kind of as an adjustment from your prior professional life. And, something I can't shut up about that you made me think of, and maybe just rewording it a little bit for you would, or maybe it can be reworded, which I'm not going to try right now, but I don't know if they're still doing it, but so in Spotify on the desktop app, I hadn't even noticed it on my phone, but I happened to open it up, and I think it was on the desktop app, but there was a series of videos, and one called The Best Advice I Ever Got. Have you seen that before?
No.
So it was a series done in the best advice ever given to, artist ABC, XYZ. And I happened to see that Cyndi Lauper was in one, and I'm like, oh, I'll check that out. And she said something, don't quote me on it, and probably easier to find on YouTube, because I have since been back into the desktop app, and I've been having trouble finding it, so they might have moved some things around, and I'm not sure, maybe they're not staying with it, but I found it on YouTube, and she, in a nutshell, was saying that, it's, as an artist, there's this constant thing about wanting to be satisfied with your work, the quality of your work, and she, kind of reflected that she felt she'd done some substandard work in the past, but someone gave her the advice, whose name I can't remember, but that as an artist, it's not our job, she says, to judge the quality of your work. As an artist, our job is to keep the channel open. And it was really beautifully told, the way she does the little short interview. And there were a whole lot of them there. So I hope that I find them again in the app, because it was a neat way to see all the different people that have been in there. But I guess, I don't know, maybe whatever kind of gets the guilt thing going, maybe some of that verbiage fits into the same advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
it's
cool.
Always good to hear other art, what works for other artists and what they tell themselves to make, to get out of your own head and
out of your way.
To get out of your own way.
Yeah. I remembered, and have probably it's been a regular routine for me to, as I see your name, like when you contacted me about the Kickstarter, I was like, oh, let me go see if they're still doing the past newsletters thing on the website, which I thought was really cool. I haven't really seen anyone else do. I'm sure somebody does it, but, and I needed to sit and read some of them. I know a little bit more about what was going on in your lives, wouldn't I? But, I wanted to bring it up and ask if there is anything that the two of you have learned, either from that or in the whole email list and community building part of your lives, as it connects to music, and from those learnings, where do you maybe see yourselves, assuming there are some things that you have kind of bubbled up idea wise, but where do you maybe see focusing some attention in the rest of this year, for example, with building community around your music to help keep the people who love what you're doing, happy with giving them all the things they want from you, music, and getting inside your weird little world and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we found what works with the newsletter and stuff. It's one is being consistent. So we try to do it once a month and around the same time of the month, like toward the end of the month, and just so it becomes this for people who read them and enjoy them. They have this subconscious like, okay, yeah, that's going to come around now, and it doesn't disappoint. In that it's not showing up or something. So just trying to be consistent with that, and giving. We try to share content that will connect people, that keeps people connected and makes people feel like they know you a little better, and like maybe they know themselves a little better because like, oh, hey, I felt that too. Or it's kind of like same thing as a song, is what it feels like to me, is just keeping people connected and interested, and I don't know. It doesn't I guess for what got us to how we were doing them was just signing up for a bunch of other people's newsletters, other artists that we like, and seeing which ones we would read, actually open and read, and what we liked about them, and trying to oh, okay, yeah, you can, because initially when we started doing newsletters and stuff, it felt like it had to be salesman-y, or okay, these are our shows, come to our shows, and that's the only thing you're putting out there. That's the only reason for it. And it's no, that doesn't have to be the only reason. Sure, you want to mention your shows, you want people to come, you want to see people in person, but that doesn't have to be the main focus. And so we shifted to it just being this is what's going on, or this is, kind of what we're thinking. And we've started putting writings in there, just these unedited object rights or journal entries or things like that. And people seem to really respond to that. They, pretty much every month, several people will write back and just to hey, comment in some way. And so it feels like we're building a true community of people, which feels good. That's great. And it's such a good reminder to, I have these conversations I have it all figured out. Or at least that's my, I think that in my head anyway, that that maybe that's how that question came out. But it's such a good reminder to share things like journal entries or the things that you're doing in your lives. I wanted to ask if you run across artists that are not really working on this particular facet of their community building. I do. But rather than ask you that, what I want to ask, what would be your advice to another independent artist who hasn't given much thought to, or maybe kind of struggles with the idea of getting started with something like a monthly newsletter? Based on your experience, what would you share with them? Yeah, I think it's worth the time, and it's worth it feels foundational almost, especially because with social media, it's so hard to. It's the only sure way. The email list is the only sure way that you can reach people. That will go to their inbox, and that hopefully they'll see it. They may not open it.
Unless it goes to their spam.
Well, unless it goes to their spam. But you know what with social media stuff, you never know who's going to see it. The other day I posted something, my mom was like, I didn't see it. Why didn't I see it on my Facebook feed? My mom who comments all, and it didn't show to her. So you never know what the algorithms are going to do. And so there's just this direct line of communication. And I think it makes your audience trust you more because they feel like they know you. And it just builds this relationship. And I think the other piece of advice is not trying to do something with it that doesn't feel authentic. You give people in that newsletter what you can give people, what it is that you have that you feel that you can share and that you can give that feels authentic and genuine. Give that thing, whatever that may be.
There's another artist that makes infographics. That's what she does.
Yeah, that's her thing.
Oh my God, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, her name's Becky Warren. If you want to subscribe to her.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
But it's whatever is going to keep someone, because there are people that will email and say oh, I look so forward to, every time I see something come in my box from you, I always look forward to opening it, or I put it to the side because I'm going to open it later when I can really sit down and spend time with it. And it's, doing whatever you think will make people do that and being genuine and giving what you feel you can give is, just not trying to be someone else. Basically. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to share something that a well-respected guy in the marketing and podcast space, and I think so much of this stuff overlaps, small business owners, entrepreneurs, independent musicians, podcasters, marketers. Yeah. We engage in a lot of the same activity to build community and do so, like you said, in an authentic or, genuine way, in a way that feels right.
And now this was for the podcast, and but I think that the same can apply to you guys, you two. Does that sound weird when I say you guys? I don't know. Every time I say it, I've said it all my life, but every time I say it, it sounds funny.
Yeah, it's time for everyone to convert to y'all.
Y'all. I know, right? And that one's it's very familiar to me too, because I'm from Arlington, Fort Worth, Texas. I grew up in Arlington, y'all. But the advice was, when, in this case of the podcast, when an episode publishes, do one thing: post production, email your list. And on 2 different occasions, he said, not to diss social media or say ignore it, but he was like, don't spend all your time there. It's like you just said, Crystal. I think it was you that said, they're not going to see it on their feed every time it goes out, because there's so much going on the feed, and there's the algorithms and all that. So he says, email your list.
Right.
And then, but the best, that was great. Actually, that was great. But the best thing he said possibly was, and then 2 days later, resend to unopens. And I'm like, I can do that, because, and I'm just thinking in the back of my head, as he said, people miss emails. You know how it is. You get this stuff, it goes down the inbox, you miss it. You might not have even seen it. Resending with a slightly tweaked subject line or intro may get it seen and appreciated for being seen. And yes, of course, the big fear, you're bugging people. Maybe you'll get some unsubscribes. That's okay. I haven't been
able to get over that fear. It's funny because our email platform thing will say, after, 24 or 48 hours, some amount of time, it's like, whatever percent of your list has it open, it resend now. And I'm like, no, I can't. I have not been able to be okay with that. And I don't know. It just doesn't feel, for me, for what we're doing, it's just like, okay, I'm putting it out there. If you want to open it, fine. I don't know. I haven't been able to make it feel like that's appropriate for what we're doing, at least,
I want you to think about trying it and sharing what you just shared with me in the opening of the resend, and just say, in case you missed it, and whatever you want to say, but I think you'll be surprised. And if you want, I'll share with you my experience, because I actually just got this advice recently, and we've all heard it, but it came from a person that I'm like, okay, I totally trust this person with these matters, and a second individual who has a lot of experience in these matters said, what we learned is that most people don't see these emails that we're all sending out. They just don't see them. So it does make a lot of sense. And yeah, sure, a few people unsubscribe. Anyway, I just want for you to think about trying that.
Yeah.
Crystal and Pete, we're about out of time. Thank you so much for coming back on. I hope that the weather cools off a little bit. Or that
we'll just have to move it.
Yeah, we'll just move to cooler weather.
Yeah, that sounds good. Or that some cold beverages will be in your immediate future to make you feel all relaxed. And for those, I don't know if you bought a second domain, but I accidentally put in ordinaryelephant.com, which redirected to ordinaryelephant.net. Was that your doing, or my browser?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It wasn't, when we first got it wasn't available. That's why we got the .net. But when it came available, we snagged it.
Look at you. I like it.
Types it in.
I like it. So ordinaryelephant.net or .com will show, let people know everything about what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you email us, it has to be at ordinaryelephant.net. Yeah.
Well, I didn't share your email here. If you want to do that, you're certainly welcome, but I bet they can find it on your website, and from your website, they can find all of your socials, right?
Yep.
And all those amazing shows that are coming up on the West Coast and the East Coast, and about your album, and find their way to the journey about the Kickstarter and all that amazing stuff, and your crazy life on the road, because your newsletters are up there on the website too, right?
Yeah. Well, and thank you so much for having us back. This is probably our first repeat appearance on a podcast.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it's an honor to have been asked and to hang out for a little bit with you.
The honor is all mine. Believe me, I love you guys. I love what you do. Yeah, you're just the coolest people. Thanks for coming back. That's a wrap. My ordinary elephant friends, Crystal and Pete Damore. Send them a note on the socials or via ordinaryelephant.com and say, I heard y'all on the Unstarving Musician podcast with Robonzo. Love them. Love you too. Hey, if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you know that I'm a fan of Bandzoogle. Let me tell you why. Bandzoogle powers websites for thousands of musicians around the world, from garage bands to Grammy winners. They have an easy-to-use system to help you get your site up fast. Lots of mobile-friendly templates to help you customize and design your site. It's built for musicians by musicians. Here are some of the features that Bandzoogle has. They have a merch and download store to sell music and merch commission-free right on your website. A tour calendar to promote your shows and sell tickets commission-free, mailing list tools to grow your fan list and send professional-looking emails and newsletters, integrations to pull in content from all your socials, and live support from a musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, but you can go to bandzoogle.com to start a 30-day free trial. You can use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to build your artist website today. Look for links to just about everything talked about in this episode in the episode show notes at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thanks again so much for listening. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.